Mindfulness is being able to perform a task that is rather mundane in a way that fosters a human connection. For example, as a nurse, I'm not just going in to take this baby's blood pressure. I am going in to really be present with this baby, to get to know the family, to ask them how their day is going. There is a little boy that I was a primary caregiver for. He was born at 32 weeks gestation and weighed 2 pounds 10 ounces. He was also born with a very extreme case of gastroschisis, which is where his abdominal organs were formed outside of his body. So he was a very sick little guy. And I remember one day his mom was at the bedside and we had just finished changing his diaper and repositioning him and getting him comfortable. And she asked me, she said, "Megan, is it okay if I give him a kiss on the forehead?" And I said, "Absolutely, of course." And it was the first time that she'd ever given her baby a kiss, and he was almost 3 weeks old. And that moment was so powerful for me, and that I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't just caring for the baby with gastroschisis or the premature baby. I was caring for this mom's whole world. And I never told the family this, but after she left that day, I sat by his bed and I cried because I was reminded of the humanity of what I do, the human connection. That kiss on the forehead was so significant for that mom. What I would tell newer nurses and nurses who may be struggling with being present is keep trying, keep looking for opportunities where you can get to know that patient and spend a little bit of extra time talking to the family. Even if it's just a few minutes, that can make a significant impact.
Hello there, Elizabeth Scala here from elizabethscala.com. So if you've been following my blog or if you've been following my YouTube channel, you know I talk a lot about staying in the present moment. So for some beginners out there, they might be thinking, well, how do I do this? You know, I really am not into meditation. I don't want to just sit there and watch my breathing. Once I start sitting there, I'm falling asleep or I'm doing whatever, and I'm just really opposed to it. Okay. While I still think that's the best option, there is another resource that I'd like to share with you today. You can use healthy reminders, trigger points, so things that happen to you on a very routine daily basis and pretty often. So here's an example. The telephone rings. Now, these days with cell phones, we have vibrate, we've got all these messaging things. But let's just say a landline rings. Does anyone have a landline anymore? Or a cell phone rings. Now, so before you go to pick up the phone and actually talk, you can become present, become mindful, take a breath in and a breath out, and then when you pick up the telephone, being more present and mindful with the person. Another example would be each time that you're pulling up your driveway and you're clicking open your garage door opener, or you're leaving your house and you're closing your garage door. So in and out, the garage door is going up and down, right? Anytime you do that, being mindful, breathing before you press the button, just becoming fully present and fully aware. Still another example might be when you're going into your kitchen and you're going into the refrigerator. How many times a day do you go in and out of a refrigerator? So each time you go into the refrigerator, before you pause, you breathe in and out, you just take a moment, and then you're doing your task. So you can build mindfulness, you can build presence and awareness into your daily tasks at hand. This is going to be a great resource for you if you're interested in joining us this Nurses Week at the Art of Nursing program. We are talking about how to bring more of a human connection, how to be present with our patients and mindful with our work, and really bring back the art of nursing. So for more information, you can visit elizabethscala.com. And then if you'd like to look into the Art of Nursing program, it's elizabethscala.com/AON. Have a healthy day. Thank you.
am sick and tired of compassion. I wasn't always like this. When I started my nurse training at the age of 17, I didn't think much about compassion at all. I thought about resuscitation and saving lives and cracking chests. I thought a lot about television programs like ER, and I thought a great deal about George Clooney. But nursing taught me pretty quickly that saving lives is about a lot more than cracking chests. In 2018, I left the nursing register, and I am a writer and professor of medical and health humanities. And my research over the last few years has been about compassion and empathy and kindness and what it means to be human. And central to the idea of all my work is that compassion is the most important thing of all. And yet, I realized that during my years as a hospital nurse, particularly in intensive care, I felt a bit burnt out, apathetic, and sometimes even indifferent to extreme suffering. I was experiencing compassion fatigue. Pain and trauma, like viruses, can be extremely infectious, and nurses and other healthcare workers, they swallow suffering every single day. Indeed, the word compassion comes from Latin compassione, which means to suffer with, suffering together. And there's only so long you can do that for, if you do it right, without becoming a little bit numb. I felt a bit numb. And then came the pandemic. I remember being on a flight once, coming back from Kenya, and there was an announcement on the tannoy. Is there a doctor or nurse on board the plane? I looked around, nothing. And then the announcement again, is there a nurse or doctor on board the plane? Please make yourself known to the cabin crew. Now, I had no intention of making myself known. In fact, I slid down my seat. I wanted to drink my gin and tonic and read my magazine in peace. But the announcement again, and this time the voice was urgent. Is there a healthcare worker on the plane? Please, we need help. We need help. And so I slowly and reluctantly raised my hand. During the first peak of this pandemic, I slowly and I reluctantly raised my hand again, and I returned to clinical work for a short time, and I found myself the lead nurse for compassionate care in one of the field hospitals that had been hastily set up in just 9 days as a COVID ICU. We were told our function was to save as many lives as possible. And it quickly became very apparent with this awful, awful disease that we weren't going to save anywhere near as many lives as we wanted to. And compassion became our central aim. Compassion, we realized, is how history will judge us. And it's how history should judge us. And we weren't alone in our thinking. There was a time at the beginning of this, a hot moment when the world felt alive with compassion. It's like we were shaken awake. How quickly we forget. 1 minute people were on their doorsteps, they were banging pots and clapping for carers and delivering food parcels to their neighbors who were shielding, and the very next moment, people's curtains closed. Everyone shuffled past each other, heads down, no eye contact. Everyone turned inwards, we all did, just trying to process our own pain. And a collective numbness swept through the world. It is no surprise. We are bombarded with tragedy. The COVID-19 pandemic uncovered the other pandemics that already existed: loneliness, inequality, injustice, violence, racism, mental illness. The events in Afghanistan, they're hard to even think of. And the existential threat of climate change, we are now told, is code red for humanity. We are tired. We are overwhelmed, and we're saturated with images of devastating suffering. And so sometimes it's all we can do to turn off the relentless news and watch Love Island instead. Maybe that's just me. But it is possible to recover from this compassion fatigue. We must recover from it. I know it's possible because I did. Shortly after returning to clinical work, I remembered something really, really important. I remembered what my patients had taught me, and I remembered what it means to be a nurse. In all my years in hospitals, I never once met George Clooney. But I did meet lots of patients like Betty. Betty was elderly and frail, and she was alone, and she was lying on a trolley in a corridor outside accident and emergency. She'd come into the hospital with chest pain and hypothermia. I did a 12-lead ECG, some observations, some blood tests, and we couldn't find anything at all wrong with Betty. So I got this bear hugger machine, which has white billowing fabric to warm her up, and I made her a sandwich and a cup of tea, and I just sat with her and held her hand. And then she told me about Stan. She told me Stan, her husband of a lifetime, had died in the hospital 2 weeks before. And she described her heart pain, not chest pain. She told me how they had danced and how the fabric from the bear hugger machine reminded her of the parachute silk from her wedding dress, and how time flies. And she said that I'd saved her life, and of course I'd done no such thing. I just sat with her a while, and I held her hand. But it was impossible to tell where Betty's hand ended and where my hand began, and nursing exists in that space. We exist in that space. What a privilege to hold the hand of a person at the frailest, most extreme and significant moments of their life. To be a nurse. Nurses remind us that we are not alone, not even now. But of course, they do a lot more than hold hands. Nurses are safety-critical, rigorously trained professionals. They are scientists and researchers and leaders and entrepreneurs and artists, and they're clinical experts. They weave around our world, caring for people in every setting you can imagine. School nurses, district nurses, practitioners working in mental health and learning disability settings, forensic nurses, military nurses, nurses working in prisons, on homeless healthcare teams, in hospices, with looked-after children. There are even nurses working behind the scenes on Love Island. The World Health Organization estimates there are 27.9 million nurses globally, 27.9 million individuals who have, despite personal risk, placed compassion at the center of their universe for us. Nursing is a language with many different accents, but it's a universal language too. It's a kind of faith in itself, with compassion at its core, a belief and respect in every single individual's worth, regardless. If how we treat our most vulnerable is a measure of our society, then the act of nursing itself is a measure of our humanity. And we all are now thinking during this time of great suffering about our humanity. Who are we? Who are we meant to be? COVID has given all of us the time for radical change and the chance for radical change. But we must shake ourselves awake again and remember the action we saw at the beginning of this pandemic, when we glimpsed our capacity for grace, for tolerance, and for love. We can remind each other of our potential by listening, really listening, thinking of other families as well as our own, by helping those who need help in practical ways and building inclusive communities, Betty was right. Nurses are right. Compassion cannot cure us, but compassion can save us regardless. The word compassion comes from compassionem, meaning to suffer with, but the word suffer comes from feeling, to feel keenly. In this age of isolationism and division and hatred, it is not feeling anything that we all must fear. In order to turn outwards, we need to feel all the feelings and remember our capacity, our incredible human spirit. It's time for us to raise our hands. Rumi was a 13th century Afghan poet. In my opinion, he was the greatest poet in all of history, and I'm going to leave you with his words, more relevant today than perhaps ever. I know you are tired, but come. This is the way. Thank you.
Hello and happy Nurses Week. I wanted to come at you with this bonus video this week because it is Nurses Week. Originally, Nurses Week happens from May 6th through May 12th, and this year is special. The American Nurses Association has declared the entire month of May 2021 as Nurses Month. On this channel, we're going to be following along with the ANA theme suggestions in support of Nurses Month. The first week in Nurses Month is centered around self-care, and so that's what this video is all about. I have a gift for you towards the end of this video, so please stick around for that portion. Here we are on the American Nurses Association home page about Nurses Month, and this is all about the celebration of nurses. And each week is divided into a theme. So the first week, self-care, May 1st through 7th, we'll use this week to focus on your own self-care, as well as supporting colleagues' mental health and physical well-being. In week 2, we'll talk about recognition. Week 3, we'll talk about professional development of the nurse. In week 4, we'll discuss community engagement, and I'll do a little bit of education on this channel about what it is exactly that nurses do. Let's get started. I'm Lisa Chappell. I'm a doctor of nursing practice and associate professor in studying to have my board certification as a health and wellness nurse coach. I make videos for nurses, students, and caregivers on how to be more empowered and resilient. If that sounds interesting to you, please like this video and subscribe below. Lord knows we could all use some self-care in our lives, especially as nurses. The analogy is so true that when you're flying in an airplane, that you should put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on other people. The reason for that is because if you're passed out, you're not going to be able to help anyone else. This week, I have 5 strategies for you that I want you to focus on this entire week, starting today, on how to take care of yourself better. My first tip is to create islands of care in your day. I would recommend starting first thing in the morning, and maybe you get up 10 minutes earlier than you normally do so that you can sit by a special window, that you could look outside, or just doing something that really nourishes you. For me, I make gourmet coffee. I love my Nespresso machine, and I make myself a gourmet cup of coffee. I froth creamer, and I have a sweet cup of coffee to start my day. And that's really, to me, it's a little island of care that I can focus on myself and my own well-being right at the beginning of the day. How else could you create little pockets of care throughout your day? Can you take a break and go for a walk? Can you play with your dog or your cat? Can you just go into the bathroom and wash your hands and make just a luxurious practice out of that? Maybe you have some special soap that you bring with you. You can make a practice out of just being mindful as you wash your hands. What other little pockets can you find in the day that create something happy and exciting for you? Usually that should involve getting outside or sitting in a peaceful place, just finding little islands of care. to be able to take care of yourself. My second tip is to incorporate an awareness practice in your day. In nurse coaching, we use awareness practices to get more in tune with your inner wisdom. And what I mean by that is that part of you that has an awareness. And so the part that's actually observing all of your thoughts, because you have thoughts and they kind of pop up like bubbles throughout your day, but there's a part of you that can notice yourself having those thoughts, and that's your awareness. And so to tune more into your awareness, incorporating an awareness practice can be really healing and really beneficial, and to include that in your day frequently. And I recommend at least once a day. There's all kinds of healing benefits to meditation, mindfulness, imagery, or awareness practices. And if you'd like to learn more about that, the National Institute of Health has some amazing research about the benefits of awareness and imagery practices or meditation practices. There's physical, mental health benefits, emotional well-being benefits. So I encourage you to look at that. Some resources for awareness practices. You can even download apps on your phone. There's an app called Calm, or there's also an app called the Hope Box, which can just give you some little inspiring meditative things that you can do, or imagery practices. I know the Apple Watch has a Breathe app, which honestly to me is more annoying than it is beneficial. If I actually sit down and do it, it does help calm me down, but it annoys me when it's tapping me and saying it's time to breathe at the most inconvenient times. And so this is more of a time that I would recommend that you set aside in your day where you can do an awareness practice. And if you stick around, I have a gift for you, and I'm actually going to lead you in an awareness practice so you get an idea of what that is. So my third tip is to pick one small dietary change that you can make. And this should be based on what you know that you need. And so maybe to even tune into what that is, you might need to ask yourself some questions or even do an awareness practice ahead of time. But what's kind of been nagging at you with your diet routine that you feel like is something that you would like to work on? Would it be to eat more fruits and veggies, to drink more water, to be more mindful when you eat and minimize distractions, or get off your phone, or stop responding to email while you're eating, and to really make that time more sacred for you? Would it be to eat something healthy for breakfast every day? Would it be to eat more whole foods, like whole grains, nuts, legumes, and to incorporate that in your daily diet? What's really important here is that you make this a positive goal. It's not something that you're going to beat yourself up about or that you guilt trip yourself into. This is creating a goal that really feels like pampering to you, and that it's something that you wanted to work on for a long time. Think about your goal, and then I want you to turn it into a SMART goal. Now I have a video on SMART goals, so I'll link that below. A SMART goal is a goal that's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound or time-lined. How could you create your dietary goal just for this week into a SMART goal? So an example of this is, this week for at least 4 days, I am going to have at least 4 fruits and veggies per day. That gives me a specific goal to work towards, but then I need to think about, what do I need to do in order to make that goal happen? In this case, I'm going to need to make a trip to the grocery store, at least one, to have enough fruits and veggies for the week, and to be really cognizant then when I have breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then with a snack, that I am having at least one fruit or veggie with that. Think of a goal that you would really like to work on and just pick one and work on that. In addition to creating a goal and putting it into the SMART format, you would have to ask yourself, what would need to happen for me to achieve this goal? If then your goal is just overwhelming you, maybe you need to back it down a bit. You should feel like, if you ask yourself on a scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being zero confidence and 10 being the most confident, how confident am I that I could achieve this goal? You want yourself to be at least 7 or higher, and then you know it's a good goal for you. My My fourth self-care tip this week that I want you to work on is moving your body. So how can you get yourself moving more? And maybe you're a fitness fanatic, or maybe you haven't seen the inside of a gym for years. Either way, it doesn't matter. Think about a goal that you would like to work on with your health and fitness and something that you could do this week to work on that. Would you like to just get out and walk? Do you want to stretch more? Do you want to incorporate yoga or learn a new exercise or a new skill? Whatever it is, turn it into a SMART goal. So how can you make it specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timelined? And it should be for this week. This week, for at least 4 days, I will take a break at noon to walk around the block for 10 minutes each of those days. And again, then see how confident are you on a scale of 0 to 10 that you could do that goal, and adjust your goal so that you'd be at a 7 or higher. My fifth tip is to incorporate reflection into your day. And so that might be journaling. For me, that's journaling, and I keep a digital journal, and I like to write with my Apple Pencil and my iPad, and I'll write out gratitude, things I'm grateful for, or I'll just reflect on my day. And it's a time and a space where I can just write whatever I want. And maybe you don't like writing, so everybody has a phone. Try turning on the record button and just start talking to yourself and reflect on where have you come from. Talk about or write about where would you like to go in the future. So if you kind of frame it in that past, present, future mode, it may help you to really get out what's on your heart. And this is a crucial component of self-care, is incorporating reflection into your day. So that's all the tips that I have for you today. And finally, I would like to end with an awareness practice. I'm going to take off my
Take a moment to become aware of your surroundings. Look around the space that you're in. What do you notice? What do you smell? What do you hear? Now close your eyes and become aware of your body. What are the sensations that you're noticing? Feel the heaviness of your limbs. Feel your connection with the surface that you're sitting or laying on. Now bring your awareness to your breathing. Feel the air moving in and out. Now breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. Feel the sensation of air moving as you draw it in and let it go. Feel the temperature of the air as it moves through the passage of your nostrils, filling up your lungs and drawing it down into your belly. Then feel the temperature of the air as you release it and let it go. Notice how it feels cooler when you pull the air in, and then how it's warmed by your body as you let it go. Now count your breaths for 10 breaths. Breathing in and breathing out as one breath. If thoughts pop up that are distracting, gently pull your attention back to your breath and counting. Feel yourself relaxing. Scan your body for any tension and focus on letting that tension go with the release of each breath and exhalation. Now pull your awareness back to the room. Notice the sounds. Notice the energy. Has it changed? Think of one thing you're grateful for in this moment. Now wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers. Stretch your neck, stretch your arms, stretch your fingers and toes if you're able. And when you're ready, open your eyes.
Happy Nurses Week.